Saw a video from Psychacks, Dr. Orion Taliban, and his discussion was on whether men are disposable. And I found his take really interesting because he touched on some hard truths that I'm sure some of the viewers today may disagree with. But what I wanted to talk about is what no one's saying. Okay, so ever since the war, we can go back to Christianity actually. Self-sacrifice is the highest form of honor a man undertakes. A woman self-sacrificing doesn't carry the same weight to her. Like, I know as a guy, for instance, I'm a husband, and there's nothing I'm not willing to do for my wife or daughter. And I think this is why I also wanted to do the video. I wanted to sort of discuss that same topic from the perspective of a husband and daughter, but still coach. And when I look at that situation, like, I'm the last line of defense as the husband in the household. That's how I see it. That's how I've been raised. And I find that really interesting that it was an automatic or straight up thing that I thought, yeah, no shadow of a doubt, that's what I'm gonna do. However, that triggered something because I didn't have to question the fact that I was going to self-sacrifice for my family. And I think if we look at the numbers, like Dr. Ryan said, we've got men that are naturally predisposed to self-sacrifice. But what we fail to realize is this: if we base our identity on the role we play or what we do, which is what men have been taught to do till date, whenever we're not useful, or whenever we are not in a position to, stand and say, this is my status, this is what I do, this is my role, well, the man feels like the one thing he can fall back on is his honor, his self-sacrifice. And I find that so damaging. I find that so damaging because I speak to so many men that have achieved so many things, and things that are not going so well. They've gone through a phase where they've lost a lot of money. I remember I was speaking to a multi-millionaire agency owner, and he said to me this. He said, I lost everything. Lost my house. I went homeless, divorced, went homeless, built from scratch. But I went through how to get there. And I actually hear so many stories. There was another guy I was speaking to, he went homeless twice, and then scaled his way into sort of freelancing for different banks and whatnot. But what I wanted to really look at here is men being valued for what they produce, right? And not what they are. It's pretty much a sign of, if you're not doing these things, then I'm just going to ignore you until you collapse. And once you collapse, I'm just going to be like, man, that's a shame. And what the problem is that, don't get me wrong, there's definitely a sickness to this as well. Like, of course, there's different factors. But I believe that this truth is something that needs to be brought to light, because we need to understand this very clearly. Numbing out or exploding at these topics or becoming bitter to them isn't the solution either. And the reason why I'm saying we need to have the discussion is because, like I say in all my videos, or most of my videos, is if we don't acknowledge the problem, then we can't discuss a solution. If we keep saying to ourselves as men that we're fine, nothing's wrong, I don't need no one to speak to. And listen, I do free calls. Like, I literally do free calls. You don't have to work with me as a coach. Of course, don't waste my time, respectfully. But I genuinely do feel like if you genuinely need help, I will actually take some time out to hear out your story and see what I can do. And that's my way of giving back. But what I'm saying, in other words, is that until we acknowledge that there's a problem, we've created a self-destructing machine. And I think Dr. Ryan basically mentioned that in the Japanese war, they called it basically becoming a cannon, a self, the more people you're able to take out, the more valuable you are, because even in self-sacrificing, you're still being useful to the mission. And I remember I worked with a man, successful, disciplined, emotionally dead, right? His wife didn't actually, the wife cheated on him, and that was because I had to tell him straight he was being weak, right? And she ended up leaving him. And he when he first jumped on the call, he's like, I gave her everything. I was a good man. I was doing all the right things. I was providing. I was being a good dad. But I said to him, within seconds, I could tell that this was the issue. He gave everything but himself, because he self-sacrificed his desires. He self-sacrificed his identity. And I need you to understand that in today's world where we're no longer at war, the new adaptation doesn't require us to self-sacrifice anymore. We don't have to bottle ourselves up into this space where we keep it all in until we explode that. But as long as we sacrifice for everyone else, it's okay. We don't need to do that anymore. We actually need to be present. We actually need to lead our emotions. We actually need to be able to speak out and own our presence. We need to adapt. And I feel like going back, or people saying, oh yeah, let's go back to how things used to be, is literally like, everyone acts like, oh, it was terrible for women. No. It was terrible for disposable men too. It was terrible for men who didn't have the status. It was terrible for men who didn't have the options or whatsoever. Right? So it was the whole idea of us, looking at the old times and saying, oh, these times were so great. No, they weren't. No, I don't know what you're talking about. I know that the ability for me to acknowledge how I feel and use that to empower my decision is much better than me being back there pretending that everything is fine, and then I either have to explode or take extra nonsense because I can't express how I feel, because that's seen as weakness. So respectfully, I prefer the times we're in now, right? So how do we now go into adapting into or rebuilding ourselves into the man that our families need today? Society is always going to treat men as disposable, and that's because that's the only way society can find men useful, unfortunately. And I'm happy for people to argue with me on this point, because honestly speaking, the moment I lost my job, the moment I was reaching out to companies and they were like, I'm just not interested. But when it came to like a job that I wasn't necessarily interested in, but I was overqualified for, people came in and started asking me questions and whatnot. Realize that that's just how things are. And we can blame women, we can blame this, we can blame that. And honestly, there's so many reasons to complain there, and there always will be. But there's also reasons to be grateful. There's also reasons to accept what we're currently facing and focus on how we're going to react to it by responding effectively, with precision, with determination, right? But this can only happen if you understand this one concept, which is this: how you react to whatever happens to you will determine the output. Everybody goes through things. I'm sorry. And I'm sorry you're going through what you went through. And that's why I say to all my clients, listen, I'm sorry you went through divorce. And I don't take that lightly, because I saw what divorce done to my parents at the age of 7. Still traumatized. Right? Well, no, I wouldn't say that. But you get my point, right? So if you're tired of living like this self-sacrificing ghost, right? And you want to become the man that can actually thrive in today's world because he's understood the embodiment or integration of both the persona and the shadow, then I'm happy to offer you a one-to-one session where we can discuss into more detail how I can support your current journey and take things from there, okay? Now, if this has added any value to you, please like a comment, and take care of my letter as I saw you when they were on the Tesco. All right, perfect. Guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace. Choosing the right woman is one of the most important things you're ever going to do. That either makes or breaks your career, that either makes or builds your spirituality. There's so many factors to factor in. Things to look for in a woman.